first of all, to say, Louise asked me to give this presentation to you because, like a lot of you, about a year ago, I was at a way point in my career trying to decide what I wanted to do. I'm a recent graduate. I graduated, finished my university work about a year ago, and I actually did it in a different subject. I was a chemist. Are there any chemists here at all? Any hands? Good man. So, but this hopefully should apply to more people looking at starting a career in OR, what it actually involves as a day-to-day graduate working in OR. And I've got a couple of case studies of the work that I've been involved in. I won't make any apologies first of all for just give you an idea that might be useful of my background. So I did chemistry. I really enjoyed it at school. Thought yeah, it was great. Did it as a degree, and enjoyed that. And I did it as well because I could do a research placement, which I did at James Cook University in Australia, which I love. So I was 6 months working full time in the lab, and I thought, actually, I quite enjoy this. I'll maybe do that a bit more. So I then decided to do a PhD, and I did a PhD in chemistry, and come to the end of that, and I decided that actually I didn't want to do chemistry. I didn't see it as a career for me, and I was looking at other options. And actually, one feeling I had was that because I'd gone down the route of a degree specialism, I'm going to be doing chemist. That's the job that I'll do for the rest of life. That's the job I've trained in. But actually, there are lots of opportunities out there for other things. There's a lot of skills that you build up in your degree that you may not realise at the time, which are really applicable to other subjects. And so I had the question about a year or so ago. So now what? I wanted to stay in a scientific background. It was very important to me. I decided I wanted a career in operational research, and I've just started embarking on that. Jeff says I may in a few years' time decide to do something else, something different, but for now I'm embarking on that career. So I'll just very briefly go into what Dstl is. Dstl is Defence Science Technology Laboratory, and it's part of the Ministry of Defence. And we're mods, science, technology, and analysis experts. And we provide a very important service because we're impartial. We sit in the Ministry of Defence, but we're not part of it. We run on commercial lines to provide independent, impartial science and technology advice to the MOD. It's an interesting place to work because in addition to analysts, the area that I work in, we have specialists in all the sciences and specialists in technology areas as well. So, Jeff mentioned some of the roles that an operational analyst could get involved in, and Dstl has people who design the equipment. Actually, in relation to some people you can call on to actually find out how it works, and where the analysts provide benefit is finding new ways and improving the ways of this equipment. To give one example, training can be improved. Dstl work involves other universities, work with a lot of industrial partners, other nations, which is probably not surprising, but also other government departments. And although defence is in the title, a large portion of the work is outside. And if anyone went to the Olympics, sorry, a bit louder. Sorry, I'll try. Some of the work that Dstl was involved in, if you went to the Olympics, was involved in. So it was involved in the queues, for example, so modelling the queues. So whilst the amount of time it takes to open a bag, to scan it, to check it, those all could be treated as constants. Actually, by modelling the flow of a queue into going, you have two queues that go into one lane or different. It sounds quite a simple problem, but you can realise benefits in terms of the amount of people you go through, and which obviously for a lot of industries has a lot of benefits. So that's one bit of work outside of defence that does it. So the Ministry of Defence is our main customer, but we do a lot of work for other departments. And it's trading fund run on commercial lines, but has embedded military personnel actually with us. So people who've got serving experience. Yeah, just to mention a bit about my career so far. So I joined in the graduate scheme. which is a two-year graduate learner scheme, has a minimum requirement of working on 3 projects in different backgrounds, different areas, and I'll go into some of the areas that I've worked in. I've worked on more than 8 projects with average 3 running concurrently. So one important skill is time management and balancing the need between different projects, different customers to get the work done. And the work, if I did the work that an analyst would do, say Dstl, is the main role is operational research, also known as operational analysis. A lot of modelling and simulation work, but also increasingly some technical partnering as well as technical consultancy, working with customers directly. And I was promoted a year ago to a full-time analyst position, so I know a lot of you, one concern that I had was of a graduate scheme is getting into a graduate scheme is there future out of there. There is, and companies wouldn't spend money training you, developing you, if there wasn't a means to progress to a full-time position. So just giving a brief idea of what Dstl gets involved in, these are the areas, the domains in the work that we provide advice to, and just a couple of acronyms in there, C4I, so that's command, control, communications, computers, information, those sort of things, and ISTAR is intelligence, surveillance, target acquisition, reconnaissance, so that's ISTAR census. This is the range of work that Dstl is involved in. I wanted to just briefly put that up. In the year that I've been an analyst at Dstl, I work in the land department. So primarily, you think of land, you might think of tanks and things like that. I've not worked with anything like that. And the areas that I've worked in, I'm going to go into a few of these in a bit more detail in a minute, but just to give you a range of areas. So I've worked in teams which provide analysts, project analysis, support. Chinook loading, picture of the helicopter over there, getting vehicles in and out. What's the constraints? How can you improve things? Counter-terrorism areas. From my chemistry background, I've been used as an independent source. My original degree level and PhD work, so being used in that. I've done a lot of work in the main areas that I've worked in is the futures and innovation and the communications areas, which are represented by some of those. So it's just a quick graphical area of the variety of areas that analysis is needed in. And I just put up a typical problem, how it would land on the desk of the graduate analyst. And one thing I found from when I first started is that it's a very simple to articulate question that you'd be given. What should armed forces look like in 20 years? Very easy to say, but how do you provide the evidence and the analysis to support a decision and to do that? Yeah. And some key questions that I think at the start and the problem is what is the scope of the question? So how do you bound this problem? It's a very open-ended problem. In order to provide scientific analysis on it, you need to bound the problem so you understand what the problem space is. And the second point, something which I found, is what are the stakeholders and people you deal with actually after, rather than what they think they want. Someone comes to you and say maybe that they are. I want you to provide some analysis to this. This is the answer, isn't it? That is not operational research. That is not science. So the issue is stepping back and making sure that an impartial look is taken on an answer. And the most important thing in the work that we do at Dstl is what can we do in the time available. A lot of the analysis that is needed is often on a very short time scale, sometimes as measured of hours, often weeks and months. And so the main difference that I found from my PhD work was that from my PhD work I had 4 years to progress on a problem. So I could leave no stone completely unturned on a blue sky more blue sky problem. The sort of decisions that I've had to provide analysis for have required reasoned decisions in a very short time scale. So it's simply not the time to do such a thing. So it's very, very important to consider what can be done in the time available. And once the problems are bounded, suitable analysis methods can be brought to bear in order to solve the problem. And for myself, whilst I had a little bit of experience in statistics, I had no background in maths or in any operational analysis techniques. So I'll go on a bit about, I mentioned a bit about training later on, but I guess the key point I'm trying to make is if you have an inquiry mind, if you have a scientific approach to solving, then these are all skills that you can bring from other disciplines into solving problems in operational research. To give you some case studies of some work that I've done. So one of the questions you have is the question: what should military communications equipment and networks look like in 2025? Again, it didn't take me very long to say that question, but actually when you think about it, trying to solve it, a much more difficult question. I might make the point there about needing to track emerging disruptive technologies. Disruptive may sound bad, but disruptive is really good. So these are technologies which, if you're aware of them, can completely change the way that you do something. So I've shown an example of pages. So pages, when they came out, they looked like they would be the solution. And then mobile phones came on, and it completely changed the course of doing things. Film photography is another example of disruptive technology. So about 10, 15 years ago, all the professional photographers were using film cameras. Digital photography came along, and it's completely changed the way that photography happens. Instead of having to compose a shot for a long period of time, compose a shot, take lots of photos, go back, pick the best photo. So the point of their technology is so technology is disruptive. You need to be aware of things in order to plan and look forward to the future. And I've used an example of mobile phones. 2025, it's 13 years ago, and I did quick research to see what mobile phones looked like 13 years ago. And for example, the shockproof, dustproof Nokia 5210. I don't know if anyone's familiar with that phone. Black and white screen, 3 or 4 lines of text, no camera, no internet, wow, but no internet, didn't check your emails. Fast forward 13 years into the future, I'll show you an example of Samsung Galaxy. I could put an iPhone on there or something like that. Things people are very familiar with using. So a mobile phone has gone from being a device where you just use it to communicate to a device which is used for a whole range of other things. And this is where the analysis comes in. How do you predict that? If you had a crystal ball which said what mobile phones would look like in 2025, Apple or Samsung would be very interested to watch you. So the issue then is bringing operational research and techniques to bear on this problem. So one way that we did it was capturing people's opinions. So getting a range of subject matter experts in, capturing and weighting their opinion on what future trends would look like. And the reason this is important is that you need to start thinking about these things now, is that in order to get training and prepare for equipment that will be used in that time frame. I guess another key point as well is although maybe technology may change, the way people use technology will still be the same. If using this example, if there's a soldier on the ground who needs to talk to his commanding officer, he will still likely need to be able to talk to them. So these are requirements that are present. So there is a need to capture lessons and existing requirements. I guess so what the impact of that is that this is the analysis that I provided on this is influencing the future £2 billion investment decision that will be coming along. So yeah, playing a very important role. Just give me another case study. How do you make a future air-portable vehicle more survivable? And the simple answer may be, it's again simple to articulate a question, but maybe to bolt on more armour to it. Keep bolting on armour, eventually it's a bunker and it can't move. So it may be resistant to attack. Sure, you can read that as well as I can. So if you increase the weight of the vehicle, for example, you reduce the speed and mobility of it, and it would actually leave it more vulnerable to attack. And so we'll do a less good job of protecting the soldiers, and actually if it's a heavier vehicle, it may not be able to be lifted
as far. And so, yeah, increasing protection may actually put personnel at greater risk. And so analysis was required to balance the factors in order to make a more survivable vehicle. So this was using some modelling techniques, some models that have been developed in order to work out what is the optimum for the role this vehicle was doing. What is the optimum balance between armour and speed? So I know this was an issue which was in the press. Oh, there isn't sufficient armour in the vehicle. Well, actually, in this example, it would actually put the people inside the vehicle in more of a risk if you greatly increase the protection. And again, so this is an equipment procurement. However, the need for operational research was evident and was commissioned and was provided in a supported £50 million procurement. And the final example, and I'm going to just give some work that I've done as an analyst over the year is in threat evolution. So if you think of this as sort of almost a game of whack-a-mole, if you solve one problem, but you may end up causing a problem in another area that you could not foresee. So introducing new tactics, techniques, procedures, or new equipment may actually result in unintended consequences for the troops that you're trying to protect, people on the ground. And so there's a method that we use in the team that I'm in called Surrogate Red Teaming, which is a form of human-in-the-loop experimentation. And what I mean by that is you set up two teams, a blue team and a red team. The terms blue and red are legacies from the Cold War, blue being friendly forces, red being your adversary, whoever that may be. And you pit the two teams against each other. And you need to design your red team so that they have the level of information that you'd expect your adversary, or whoever it may be, the person trying to influence, to find out. And it's a way of thinking, it's a cliche phrase, thinking outside the box, so to speak. And this is this is a model which is used to provide evidence of likely how future threats may evolve. And most of the current, what's called UOR, these are urgent operational requirements. So these are where a need has been seen in theatre, in the forces somewhere, and a piece of equipment is rushed in, so it doesn't normally have the long thought analytical process. This is a relatively rapid method to provide analysis and support to that capability. An example of that may be if say, people have heard of roadside bombs, improvised explosive devices and mines. If you give someone a metal detector, for example, which can detect it, instead of doing the job that he may be supposed to be doing, which is keeping his eyes up, watching for other threats, he's now got his eyes looking down all the time. And some of the analysis that we've done has been providing the ways you can support this person, improve the cognitive interface so that it isn't so complex. And a large part of the work we do is with psychologists, sociologists, people with human factors experience. These are key because you're at the end of the day dealing with people. And so I just wanted to give just a few examples of some of the work that I've been involved in. Fresh out of university, starting my career in operational research. I just want to talk briefly about training. I was a bit daunted when I started that I'd gone from a background with very little mathematical, very little statistics background, but again, the soft skills that are so important in degrees, especially and the scientific basis of science degrees, has put me in really good stead. And one thing I would say is that you don't need any experience of military or anything like that. That was one assumption that I had to work in the MOD. Because also, especially given that more of our work is being done by other government departments as well. And so I've had project-specific model and method training, and there's been a specific method which is used on a problem, and wider training for tools and techniques. And importantly, the need to always take a systemic approach to problem solving. To always look about how does changing one area affect affect other areas. So hopefully that's given you an idea of some of the work that could be involved in in operational research. And just as a final slide, I'm just sort of putting some other things that I found maybe interesting to other people in the year. So I've been to Paris, didn't see a lot of it, unfortunately, but and presented to members of the French government some of the work that the UK is doing. Part of the Battle tour, Battle Hastings may seem a very odd place to go, but history teaches us that we don't often remember our lessons, and there are a lot of lessons which you can still learn from that battle. Dstl is part of the civil service, and I'm quite involved in cycling. I set a cycling club at Dstl, funded by some funding from the Civil Service Sports Council. And that's just want to make the point at the bottom is that whilst I'm progressing with my operational research accreditation, I'm also progressing with my chartered chemist role. So some of the work that I've done, I can't talk about too much, is involving chemistry and some of the original knowledge and work that I've worked on previously. So both have still been funded by and supported by my employer, because that's seen as an area of expertise that I can bring to it. And you'll be pleased to know that is the end.